Okay,
Great.
so we're going live. Let's hope the internet is good. Yes, we're live. So it's a great pleasure today, everybody. We are really honored to have Penny Kelly back with us once again. And what a joy it is to see you, Penny, to see you looking so well. And you had quite an experience from February, didn't you? Would
Yeah.
you like to share some of the highlights or the points maybe
Yeah.
that you've learned from this experience, and what would you like to share?
I, I
You know,
think probably the first thing, and this was kind of a lesson for me, was all of the years of just really taking very good care of myself, doing the exercises, taking the supplements, eating well, doing detox. That really paid off. The last thing I would have ever suspected would go wrong would be a closed loop bowel obstruction. Never even crossed my mind. And what happened was the bowel got caught in some old scar tissue and couldn't get uncaught. And so it was painful. Holy cow. There's pain and then there's pain. And this was pain that you can't get a hold of. You can't make it be other than what it is, at least at my level of development, that my magic wasn't working. And so I woke up at 7:30 in the morning and was in pain instantly, just boom. And by 2:30 in the afternoon, it was like, okay, I've done everything I know. This isn't getting better, it's getting worse. So I had to go
did
to
you
the
get, can I ask
emergency.
you, did you get any warning signs, or was it just 7th in the morning? You woke up and that was it.
That was it. No warning signs at all. I thought it was my gallbladder. And so I kept thinking, why would I be having trouble when I didn't have any warning? There was no indication that
Yes.
something was going wrong. It was just, I rolled over to look at the clock, saw it was 7:33 a.m. and was like instantly, oh, could hardly breathe, and proceeded to work on myself, light breath work. I mean, everything, positioning. Got up and got on the BCX. Nothing really helped. And so finally, I went to the emergency room and they said, "Oh, you need emergency surgery." And by this time, it was like, I don't know, 7:30 or 8 at night. And by that time, I had had some drugs. So I was like, okay, fine. you know,
Oh,
do your
oh,
surgery. But then they said, you're probably going to have a bowel resection. You may have a colostomy. And I was like, oh, no. So, but there was just one miracle after the next, because after 20 hours of not being able to work properly, the bowel typically after 12 hours, the bowel will die. And then they have to cut it out and resection, sew it back together, do a colostomy, whatever they do. Um, and that didn't happen. So it was 20 hours. And the surgeon said, when we finally released that little bowel, it just turned pink, stood right up, and started working again. And he said they watched it for a little bit and said, "Looks like it's going to work." So that was the first miracle as far as I was concerned. And then that was, I think, around midnight, and on the 13th of February. So that was my Valentine's Day present, was surgery. Um, and then, it was all over. Less than 24 hours later, they had told me, you'll have to be in the hospital for 7 days, all this stuff. And one of my daughters said to the doctor, "I don't know about that, doc. She's quite a beast." And I was like, "I'm not a beast." So, but, he remembered that, and he came in on Thursday morning and he said, "Well, You haven't had any pain pills for 24 hours. You're starting to have bowel sounds. You know, you want to go home?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can go home and get some sleep because, man, they're poking you every 5 minutes at the hospital or making you do something, or they're practicing on you because this was a teaching hospital." So, so I came home, you know, after 2 days, and that was there was no pain, none at all, none. And you know, I just now it's like I never had surgery, so all is well. There was a
Amazing.
whole lot of people who were sending healing energy. I think they made the magic. So I really appreciated that. You know, John Claude did some kind of a healing thing with what do you call those singing bowls kind of healing.
Wow.
People were sending messages.
Yeah.
I was babied for a couple of days, almost a week there, and my kids were like, "Oh, don't move, don't do this." I'm like, "Look, it doesn't bother me, it doesn't hurt." But you could pull something. Okay, I'll go slow. So I kind of move slow, but all's well now. I'm back to, going 2 miles on the treadmill, doing my fountain of youth exercises and my eye exercises, which are just much more strenuous. They're for the spine. So all is well.
What an inspiration you are, Penny. You know, you bring so much hope and light to other people through your example. Really. It's,
Well,
it's
I have to say, when I came out of the anesthetic, from the instant that, I could hear voices, I was already working on myself, breathing in, seeing light. I didn't know what the outcome was and I didn't care. It was just like, okay, we need to do some breath work. And I was working on myself almost continuously. And when I wasn't, I was elsewhere. I think on a ship, I know on a ship. And
yes.
other people were working on me. And we were having quite the conversations. And I was back and forth between that hospital bed and that ship for the whole 2 days I was in the hospital. So Tuesday and Wednesday.
And so you got an upgrade.
I
Is
did.
that right?
That's what they called it. They said, "Did you remember that this was going to be necessary?" And at that time, I did. Standing there on that ship, it was like, yeah, I remember this was part of the plan. I did not remember that in my everyday 3D life. But there it was like, yeah, is it done yet? And they said, yeah, you're ready to go. And they gave me a few tips and said, we did this and we did that, and we they said the planet has moved into a higher frequency zone in the cosmos, and that zone is adversely affecting a lot of bodies, especially for the sensitive ones. And those bodies need an upgrade in order to be able to handle without damage the higher blood pressure, the higher blood sugar, etc. And so I said, "Oh, okay, all right." And I thought at the time I was the only one, but turned out actually I had a list. I started a list of let me count. Um, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 people that I personally know of who have had the same kind of thing happen. So, and they're all people that are on my team, all of them. So that was really uh, something of a surprise. It was like, oh, okay. They're one by one. They went in the hospital for something that seemed like an emergency, and then voila. 2 days later, went home, no signs of whatever was wrong. Um, blood pressure was up to 200 for one guy. Blood sugar was up to 200 for another guy. And never had any signs of difficulty. And my people said, well, we could have picked you up, but you guys, you have too much presence. And so we thought it best, to just make you go to the hospital so that we could have access to you and you'd be out of the public eye and under our control for a couple of days. And then, after that, you're fine. So now there's 9 of us that have had this upgrade that have all had the exact same experience. So it's been really kind of interesting.
Wow, that's something. And talk a little more about your team. Who's on your team?
Oh,
Or, I mean, sorry, you don't have to
well,
necessarily.
let me see how to say this. So without any background, it's kind of hard to talk about the team, but I'll make a
Sorry.
couple of statements that are really broad. Okay.
Okay.
The planet has been under attack for over 100 years. Okay. There have been a group of aliens here. I know this is going to sound off the wall, that
Right.
have been taking over the planet. Okay, trying to. They use the same method every time. And that method is they come in, they send in small grays. The small grays have this whole sob story. And the sob story is, oh, we've lost our planet. We're dying. We need some new DNA. Could you help us? We'll give you some technology if you will allow us to study your people and maybe take a few samples. And so that agreement was made, and they are the front. The small grays are the front for the really tall grays, and the tall grays come in behind and they start abducting people left and right and taking eggs and sperm and hybridizing our population with their population, with the goal of eventually, after 4 or 5 generations, being able to take over the planet. And and it's a very sophisticated process. So when let's see, let me skip to another relevant point. When the planet got to the point that it was clear, well, let me say it this way. There are other ETs. There are other people from other races that are very benevolent. The Greys are not, and neither are the reptilians, for that matter. And the Greys are the front for the reptilians. So little Greys front for the tall Greys, and tall Greys front for the reptilians, who take over politically and economically. So anyway, the plan to counter that without violating Prime Directive was to counter the infiltration of the Greys with the infiltration of teams of people that would be born as humans. They have to be born as humans because they have to do the work, and nobody can intervene. The humans have to do it for themselves. You cannot, raise the white flag and say, okay, I give, because that just doesn't work. If you're going to survive as a civilization, you have to save yourself. You have to step into your power. You have to take responsibility for yourself. You can get help in the form of inspiration, telepathy with ideas that get inserted. et cetera, et cetera. But in order to counter the infiltration of the grays and the hybridization, a team will come in, and that team usually is going to consist of media people, that's a big group, political people, a few military, some medical, and some financial. So the biggest part of that is media, because media is the biggest, that's where the biggest effort takes place. And so I'm part of a team of about 200 that have come in all, there have been a couple, there was an earlier generation, I'm in the second generation, and there's another 2 or 3 generations behind me that will come in. And so the job was to, my particular job was to teach the world about the mind and consciousness, and to put that out there so that people would step into their own power and realize that they're going down. And people, because the whole denial, no, there's no ETs, you're crazy, that's nuts. Meanwhile, in the background, the governments are working with all sorts of ETs like crazy. And, it gets to be crazy making. And so my orders were stay under the radar, don't say anything. They will take you out. And because they can scan and read your mind, I was really told to not say anything, don't even think it, because you'll be targeted. I did have some protection. I still do. I'm so grateful for that. But the task has been to wake people up without frightening them. And it's hard to talk about the stuff that's going on without frightening people. And a lot of people are just like, I can't deal with it anymore. They get angry, and they put it all aside. Um, if we just had a few more people who would like stand up and withdraw from the old system and refuse to go along with it. We need more Frenchmen. The French are the only ones with any guts, I swear to God. So, that whole thing, everything is being presented like it's the same old world, the same old narrative, Russia versus the US versus Russia, China's, a problem, we might have a war. There's all this crap that's being shoved at us. And in the meantime, what's going on in the background is darn right scary. And so it's, so there's, the team has been, we've lost a few people. One of my co-team leaders, died in the COVID thing. And whoops, can we say COVID? That was kind of a blow to me, because that was really a big deal for me. But I also got a message that he's back on board and he's working from there. So it's like, okay, I really, really would have rather had him here, but that's, you win some, you lose some. So the team is working to hold the line. There's a few people that are undercover that are taking down the old system. They're taking out the old players, and they're doing so in a pretty final way. There's stuff happening I think it's in the foreground. It's so obvious, but it's not anything that anybody's talking about. It's just easy to see in terms of what's really happening and why it's happening. And so I'm watching, the play-by-play, and there's always some kind of very plausible story that explains this or that. and it's all lies. So we have fake everything. We have a fake government, we have fake finance, we have fake history, we have a fake education system, we have a fake everything, fake finance, so fake banking. I think I said that. um, but it's we're going to have fake everything until some people stand up and make something new happen, and it's coming. It's coming soon here. So the team, that's the team has been upgrading the team members was a critical piece because they couldn't afford to not be functional in the system that we're in this area of the galaxy, or this area that we have moved into within our galaxy. And people don't think galactically. They barely think in terms of their town. They don't care what's happening in their city. You know, when I'm looking out there at the world, I'm thinking at a minimum planetary, and next galactic, and then intergalactic. And that's not the way most people think. So they really aren't big picture people. And so it's like, okay, how do you inspire? How do you convince? You know, and we have a saying in where I come from, it's one person at a time. You just keep on one person at a time, and it spreads. And that's what you're after, is for that to spread organically. And it looks like nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's like, okay, now it's happening. So, you know, my fingers are still crossed. So that's kind of a short version of a very long story. So
Thank you. It's fascinating. I love that you referred to the French, you know, because we've just got Pluto just gone into Aquarius. And the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had the French Revolution, the American Revolution. You know, it's, yeah. So it's interesting that, you know, we're right back
yeah, we are.
tuning in a sense, to those types of energies. And it's interesting that it's still in that part of the globe
Yeah,
where there is that energy that is still there. It's
yeah,
accessible, like,
yeah.
yeah.
They aren't putting up with any crap. It's like, you're not
No,
fooling us.
yeah,
And so it's you know, I'm watching everything happening, and I read all around the globe just to keep my eye on the events happening, and we're getting close. So yeah, I'm ever so often I think to myself, okay, um, you know, can we, if we were a little more schooled astrologically, thank God for you, and you know, people like you, and
learning.
who's your friend, Pam?
Yes,
There's
yes.
a few other astrologers out there. They
Oh,
talk about
very good
the
ones.
energy. It's like, okay, when the energy is doing this, that's time to make a move. When the energy is not doing that, you know, think twice, think three times.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we don't work very well with energy. We're still trying to move physical stuff, not realizing that the energetic stuff has to happen first, or
Yes.
ain't nothing
Yes.
happening. So,
Yes, Penny. So this
yeah,
is what, and this is what I wanted to, a little more if we could discuss,
okay.
because just as you're talking about gross matter and density, and we're moving, you know, away from this heavy density, I
Right.
think, to a
Yeah.
different kind of medicine where we're using, you know, like the BCX machine, we're using energy.
Yes.
And so we're moving towards that. And how do we make this transition? I think a lot of your work is involved in this. How do
Yeah.
we transit? Because as you've said, I think on one of your videos, I heard you say that eating is a tremendous invasion on the
Yeah.
system, right?
It
Because it
is.
is, isn't it? So, how do we make
Yeah.
this transition from being very dense material beings to these upgraded beings that are lighter and of the higher consciousness. Can you address that a little, please, Penny?
Oh
And
gosh.
maybe address food and diet and fasting and eating, and does each one have to find their own way, or is there a protocol? Or over to you.
Okay. So so let's address the thing about density. Okay.
Yes, yes.
When you are, and I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable, but when you gain weight, you become much more dense and much heavier. You have a whole lot more real estate now that you have to patrol and, keep an eye on. And the body doesn't have the support. This leads into the total program that people who are trying to take over the planet have put in place. And the total program is ruin the air, ruin the water, ruin the food, ruin the education system, take over the medicine, ruin the medicine, build up the medicine thing because we're going to use that medicine to control them um, at a critical point in the future to quell the revolution. And so there's a whole lot of things that have been happening for about 100 years. So what's the result of those things is that the body has become incredibly inefficient. It doesn't process food. It doesn't digest very well anymore. It doesn't have the oxygen. Oxygen in the atmosphere has been reduced by about 50%. Oxygen is a huge antibiotic. And now they're trying to reduce carbon dioxide. It's like, are you stupid? You people who have greenhouses put carbon dioxide, they have carbon dioxide inputs in their greenhouses to help their plants grow. Plants have to have carbon dioxide like we need to have oxygen. So then we have this food that is grown in a very poor chemicalized agriculture manner. And we eat that and we uptake all of those chemicals and the heavy metals that are used to stabilize those chemicals. And let's just take a famous example, Roundup. When you ingest Roundup, how does Roundup work? It works by preventing the uptake of minerals. How is the body built? It's built by uptaking minerals. So what happens is you stop uptaking the minerals that you need, and pretty soon you have arthritis and you have osteoporosis and bursitis and all kinds of other bone problems, as well as minerals are needed to build many, many proteins. So we start to degenerate and we don't have the oxygen, therefore we don't have the energy, and we don't have the natural antibiotic resistance that high levels of oxygen provide. Then we don't have the food that is grown in high energy environment that is absolutely pristine and pure, clean, nothing that would stress the body. And then we have water. Everybody buys their water. What has happened to the water? We have no idea. I mean, a few people can know chemistry and they can test it and maybe they'll do something. But the whole goal is to make sure that the people do not develop, do not have the energy, can't think, can't feel, can't move, and don't care. And so we end up going down. What happens is that as all that happens, hang on, I forgot to turn off my, there we go. As all of that happens, the body swells. The first response to any kind of injury is swelling. And so everybody looks like Pillsbury Doughboy or Dough Girl, and they don't feel good, and they don't have any
Yeah.
energy. As soon as they don't feel good, now they're too tired and too pooped to exercise. As soon as you quit exercising, you go down twice as fast. And so what would normally happen as you grow older, you would become slimmer and less dense, but not to the point of arthritis or osteoporosis or any of those other, problems that we have. You become less dense, and that is not happening. I have friends that weigh 400 pounds, and don't make a single effort to try to fix that or correct that. And it's hard to watch them struggle and suffer. So, it breaks my heart when I see what's happening to the food, when I know what's happening to the water, when everybody, one of the things in the hospital, they kept saying to me, could I get a list of the drugs that you're on? And I said, well, I'm not on any drugs. And they were like, what? How? I thought, what? They couldn't believe that. One of the nurses said to me, I want to be like you when I grow up. She was a young thing. And that's the second time in a year I've heard that same comment. What? You're not on any drugs? And, one gal said, well, why aren't you on any drugs? You're 75. And I said, because I take care of myself. And she couldn't take that in. That didn't have any meaning to her. And so it was like, oh, okay. So that everybody's on drugs, and not just one or two, but sometimes 5 or 6 or 7. And then the drugs start to have interaction. You can't get to the next density because you're loading the whole system down with so many what we call impurities, and they are impurities. ETs, people from other places, they've gotten to be able to get off their planet using a consciousness that is brilliant. How do they get that brilliance? They're picky. They're very picky about their air, their water, their food. They will drink something like alcohol, but it doesn't do what alcohol does. It doesn't depress. It, what do you call it? Oppresses. um, it infuses people with energy and a little bit of this joy, which I think is what people are after when they drink alcohol. A little bit of, relief from stress, a little bit of joy. There's food, there are certain exercises. We exercise in a way, for most people, it takes the body down. It doesn't build anything. It doesn't restore. So there's a whole science to exercising. When it comes to now wanting to move into 4th and 5th dimensional living, people often want to escape, and they don't realize that 4th dimension is still fully physical. It's just that you have made this amazing commitment to do no harm. And what's the first thing you do no harm to? Yourself. Do no harm means you don't eat, drink, anything that will bring you down. Everything is done to build you up and to maintain you, because to do otherwise is it's suicide. So in terms of what I'll call trying to get to another way of living, another density, there's no real escape. There's a lot of work that has to be done. And that's a critical thing for people to understand. They want to escape the fourth dimension. There's things I could say that would be really discouraging, but I'll, I'll let that go. Um, because first we have to recognize that it's a choice, it's a commitment, it's a lifestyle, it's a way of thinking, it's a way of interacting. It's just it's not difficult. It's way easier than being upset all the time. So yeah, we're meant to become less dense as we get older, and gradually learn to live more on this extraordinary energy, and anything that we take in brings us more of that extraordinary energy. So, so when I say food is a huge invasion and the body has to stop and try to find a few frequencies in that food and dig through all this, material stuff looking for a few frequencies and there's nothing in it, the body has spent its resources, it's spent its money and got nothing in return. So we go down.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
would you, thank you very much for that, Penny. And I would like to just direct everybody. I see Radhika, thank you, doing a terrific job in the chat here, sending people to Penny's website and all the various
Oh, yeah.
things. But Penny does a lot of wonderful work in helping you get to this higher consciousness and giving you some very, very practical tools
Yeah.
and ways to get there. And Penny, your work is amazing with your books and your classes. So I'm just encouraging everybody who is interested to visit Penny's website and get more information there, please. And that
Yeah.
is consciousnessonfire.com. Is that right, Penny?
Yeah. Consciousnessonfire.com or just pennykelly.com. Either one takes you to the same place.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So would you say that it's important to begin to eat less quantity? Does that help with the density?
Yes. As long as you keep the nutritional aspect high. Unfortunately, the reality is that there's almost no nutrition in the food at all anymore.
So what do
So
we
that
do?
means you have to take supplements. Some of them are pretty good, some of them are pretty bad, but you have to take supplements to keep the nutrition level high because we just haven't evolved to the place yet where we can, um, like, come up with a little drink that you take a few swallows of that drink and you have all the nutrition you need and then some, and it regenerates. We know so little. We're starting to
Yes,
know more, but we know so little about the frequencies needed to maintain a body. We know there's vitamin A, B complex, C, D, the D complex actually, E. There's a few others, but there's a lot of stuff that's missing from that whole thing. And, you have to have the nutrition or you will go down. If you eat less and you're not getting the supplements bringing in the nutrition, then you're going to end up not nourishing the body. You'll lose weight, yeah, but then you lose a whole bunch of other things. Stuff stops functioning because it doesn't have the nutrition. Nutrition is frequencies that maintain the body.
right.
And it's, you have to have, I'm actually, one of these days I'm going to draw a picture of how proteins form. When you look at a protein, they're all look like somebody folded the socks really badly, just crumbled them up in a ball. They look like, they're a mess. And when you pull them out in a string, you can see the sequence of molecules or particles, whatever makes up that protein. What makes that protein fold at exactly the right place to make that protein do its work? It's the other frequencies that it runs into. And so it takes a detour and then it runs into something else and takes another detour and then another one and then another. So you get these massively folded proteins. And when all those frequencies are missing, the proteins they're loopy. They don't have the sharp folds, and therefore they don't have the lattice structure that they need to do their chemical work. And people start going down. This quits working, and that, their hair falls out, their eyes quit working, their teeth fall out. They one thing after the next. So heart problems, liver problems, kidney problems, problems with female and male reproductive system, the whole sensory system, cardiovascular, gastrointestinal, all of that has to work together. So,
Penny, thank you. This is awesome. How much can we? I mean, absolutely, you're right. Our soils are depleted. It's a
yeah.
situation. It's difficult. Could we, in any way, compensate for a lot of these deficiencies through a mental shift?
Some. We aren't very powerful. Um, you have to boost the nutrition in order to boost the clarity of consciousness. Okay. Once you get that boosted, then you can begin to impact and use energy directly. And that's one of the things you can do. It takes a little bit of time and effort. You may have to rebuild for a couple of years before you can begin to just take in energy directly from the atmosphere. And even then, a lot of people still find that the whole fabric of a civilization is pretty much built around food and the connections around food. So if you're the only one that's not eating, you're left out. And what it looks like, and I can attest to this from times when I have fasted for 40 days in a row, you're sitting there, you're looking at people and you're thinking, is that all they ever do is eat? Can't we get on to something else? And they're hungry. They're hungry or they're thirsty all the time. Why? Because the body is calling for what it needs. And we don't know how to pay attention to that and to discern. Okay, we never stop to say to the body, what do you need, sweetheart? What are you asking for? Most of the time it's water. Not always, though. Sometimes it's fruit. Sometimes it's meat. Sometimes it's red meat. Sometimes it's some kind of potato or carbohydrate or bread, or sometimes it's dairy. The body knows what it needs, and we get off into all these fad diets that
Oh,
just wreck us.
oh, yes, yes.
And then
But
we
the
fight
challenge
over it.
is finding the good quality nutrition. This is
Yeah,
quite a challenge. This
it
is
is.
really so.
Yeah, we're coming close to being able to provide a huge amount of nutrition in a couple tablespoons of liquid. We're getting there, but it's a start. I would say that it's a start. I
You mean
think
the liquid supplements? You mean like a multivitamin and a liquid supplement? Would that do some?
multiple vitamin, multiple mineral, multiple aminos, all kinds of food factors and cofactors in that liquid. Yes, that we're getting there slowly. So,
That's great,
um,
isn't it? Yeah, if we can
yeah,
get.
and we're learning how to implant. We know how to do this. We just haven't gotten past the old model of, okay, let me make a pill or a liquid that does this. Why don't we make a liquid that does it all and takes care of everything? We do know
Exactly.
how to implant a frequency into not only a water, but a carbon-based paste. Um, we're
Yeah.
moving. I'm going to say in 10 years, the whole vitamin mineral thing is going to look very, very different. And people will be getting some of that frequency by lights and some by ingestion of these liquids or pastes.
Yeah, spot on. And I think it relates to something you said earlier, which is people have not been thinking galactically. We've not been thinking big. And it's the same with let's do it all in one go. Let's do it in one hit.
Right.
And it's this bigger, more unlimited thinking. We've not been trained, the education system, the fake system, so everything that you've talked about, I think
Yeah.
is spot on. And it relates to this limitation around the food, I think,
Yeah.
and what we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
accomplish.
If you mess up your food, that was the favorite trick of the Romans. That's why the Romans became so powerful. Everywhere they went, they dumped salt on people's land, and salted land won't grow anything. And then the people became weak and they were hungry, and they made deals with the Romans because they had to. So we're pretty much being subjected to the same kind of thinking. Let's ruin. What do you think all those chemtrails are for? They ruin the land. They dump all kinds of toxins onto the land that we're trying to grow on. And then we eat that food and ingest that stuff. It's really sad.
Yeah.
So
It's as you
yeah,
say, it's this whole, I think we also maybe have to not be too obsessed with our food nutrition and at the same time open to other things as well. So it's a
yeah,
whole package, is I think
yeah.
what you're talking about.
And I think we could start with food. That's an excellent place to start. Food and exercise. Keep the body moving. Move it correctly. Don't wear it down. Build it up. And breath work during exercise is critical. I don't see a lot of talk about that. When you are exercising, breath has to be done in a particular way. Otherwise, you wear the body out instead of bring in energy. So we
Yes.
are right on the cusp, I think. I'm pretty sure that we're going to wake up here in over the rest of this year. I keep seeing something after the middle of May. It's like, uh-oh, it looks messy. In the US has been kind of like, okay, this isn't really happening, is it? No, okay, it's not bothering me. I'm gonna look over this way. And so nobody's doing anything, but around the rest of the world, people are saying, hey, that's enough. I think what it'll take in the US is for the financial system to be disrupted enough to frighten people, because money is how we buy existence. And I see that the financial people are working really hard to smooth this financial thing so that they don't get that pushback. And I don't know if it's going to work. We'll see.
Well,
So,
Penny, Jupiter goes into Taurus on May the 16th. That's a very big shift. Taurus is our financial system. We've already got
okay.
Uranus in Taurus, the North Node in Taurus, which has to do with the lessons of humanity, which
Oh,
has to do
wow.
with money, finance, self-worth. We equate, or many people have been taught to equate self-worth with net worth.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they have no connection in actuality, but
Yeah, but
I mean, we make up all kinds of stuff and use
yeah,
that to propel us in a direction. So,
yeah,
it is what it is. But
yeah.
yeah, we're coming to, I think, a financial break of some sort, or financial bump in the road, at least a bump in the
Yes,
road. And it
yeah.
may be enough to set people off. Um, might not be, we'll see. But when you threaten people's money, and they can't buy what they need, which is food, water, and pay their bills, and they start getting shut down, that's cause for taking up arms.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
I'm hoping it's not coming to that. I don't have a feeling it's coming to that, but we don't know. We
we'll
just have
see.
to keep
Yeah,
um,
without any ideas about how to proceed, almost the only thing you can do is fight. I mean, I don't like the idea at all. On the other hand, I've had, just in the last 2 months since the surgery, I've had several meetings on board ship about that whole issue of fighting, and how to fight and when to fight and what to fight with, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's changed my thinking about that a little bit. So there is a war going on for this planet, and people are just not aware of that. And
Would you
it's
like to share a little more about the fighting, or is that not something you want to talk about at this point? It's okay if you're not comfortable with it. That's okay.
I'll say this. Um, the first big fight was over Los Angeles in 1942. And it was a massive fight that lasted all night, from like 11 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night till 5 the next morning, between UFOs, big ships. And the Army and the Navy were out there shooting at the bottom of these big ships, and stuff just bounced off. It's like, kind of trying to take down a bear with a water pistol. Didn't do anything. And that was, one of the big turning points that said, okay, we have to get our team together and get them coming. And there was quite a bit of training before I came here. But the second, maybe 2010, the next big battle that I witnessed was over Las Vegas. Some guy, just out walking at night, had his phone, and was terrible video, but it was, there were some parts of it that were really clear, and it was like, OMG. And there they were shooting at one another, big beams, explosions, sparkles, all kinds of stuff. The next fight I saw was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, was over France. Huge fight with plasma weapons. I couldn't believe it. And at that point I thought, okay, nobody ever talks about these things. Anybody who has that kind of information or video gets taken down immediately. We're just not aware. But the whole reason that the war started was because the Earth is a little sector that's key in this part of the galaxy, and the benevolent people, the good guys, the guys who really want to live well and raise their children well, because they do have children, and live in peace. And go even further, evolve further. They're like, no, when you have weapons, when you have what I call a mapping computer, people would think of it as quantum, but we call it a mapping computer. It's a computer that has had all of the frequencies of a given reality system and their interactions and the frequencies that they produce binaurally or trinaural or quadnaural frequencies, the whole string of transactions that occur from the interaction of these two can be mapped out into the future. And when those good people, everybody's got these kinds of computers except for us. But when they were looking at the future, you know how I always say, you have to look at the future so you can see, do you need to do anything different? When they were looking at the future, what they saw was that the entire galaxy of the Milky Way had been taken over by these controllers that were on a, you know, the bad boys, the guys who want slaves, who want to take advantage of people, who don't honor anybody's rights or their free will or their anything. They use people, they abuse people, they kill people, um, they enslave everybody, and so the good guys came to look and see what was going on here and saw that, by gosh, there was a program that was just being put in place to take over the planet. And that program, they said, okay, we can't allow this, because if we allow this to continue, what happens is this whole sector of the galaxy goes, and then the galaxy is likely to go with it. These are people who have amazing technology that can blow up a planet, technology that can create a sun. We don't even think like that, let alone, have weapons or tools that do those kinds of things. So the fight started. They could only intervene a little bit. And so the war has been going, and the effort has been that's part of what my team is here for, is to undermine that effort to get people to swallow that thing in the arm, to get people to not swallow that thing in the arm so that they remain free. Because once you are chipped, then you become slave material, and the biggest trade in the entire galaxy is DNA, and human, especially humans that have some familiarity with technology. So the war has been to stop the bad extraterrestrials from taking over any further than they already have. But the effort, they can't intervene directly. The effort has been to get us to stand up ourselves. And so that war it's quite a sophisticated war. I don't really talk about it much, but it's cost a lot of lives. We do have interplanetary capacity, I'm pretty sure. So I'm thinking that we're close to winning now, maybe only 10 years left. So we'll see.
Gosh, thank you, Penny. I feel as though I could talk to you for hours about many, many subjects. The internet is really choppy. I don't know if it's happening for you, but my internet's really cutting out quite badly.
I heard some of that, cutting in and cutting out.
Coming in and out. So I'm just going to say, Penny, thank you for being here today. Would you come back again? Because I've got a feeling.
Sure. Oh, you just froze. Are you there?
Afterwards, at least some of the subjects you've talked about. Can you hear me? Because you seem to be frozen. Hello?
Yeah, you froze for me as well. So
yeah, and you froze for me. So I think this is going to now really choppy. So I just want to say a big thank you and would love to invite you back again, Penny.
Okay.
Some more questions if you'd like to come.
I would. I'm sure I disturbed people. I didn't really want to disturb people, but maybe it is time for the truth to come out a little more. And we didn't ask any questions, so
actually they'll probably come in afterwards, because what you were saying was so riveting and people are very grateful. We're getting immense, very positive feedback here from everybody. Radhika, thank you for your help. Daphne, thank you for your amazing help.
Yeah,
and really, where would we be without our backups here? So Penny, please come back. Yes.
Okay,
soon.
Maybe next time we can just talk a little and answer some questions, so
that's what I'm thinking. Next time we won't talk so much, and we'll focus on the questions. Yeah. But I think you've brought up some great things, and being disturbed actually is not a bad thing, because growth doesn't happen when you're sitting watching television eating popcorn.
Oh, yeah, that is true. Very well put.
It's not, it's not
Okay.
going to happen that way. We'd like it to happen, but it
I
doesn't.
know
So,
we would.
Penny, thank you, thank you, team. Thank you to
Okay.
all your team and our team together. Thank you,
Yeah.
and much appreciated. Thank you,
Thank you, everybody.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah.